Today I want to talk to you about a concept I've learned from a guy named Chris McChesney, who wrote a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Absolutely brilliant. Had my entire staff, leadership team read it, and we're implementing it in our organization, and hopefully you'll implement it in yours. The concept is this: listen, most organizations are very good on the strategy or the vision side of things, but they're not very tactical. They don't understand how to make the vision, bring it into reality. And so he gives some pointers on how to do that. The first thing he says is this: determine the wildly important goal, the WIG, wildly important goal. The fact is, he talks about how there's a whirlwind of activity in your organization, that there are a lot of things that have to get done in order to pay the bills and things like that, but there are very few things that are really, really important, and if these things were to improve, if they were to change, they would change the course of everything else. In a sense, they would raise the level of everything else if these things began to happen. A wildly important goal, for example, in your church may be to raise up a leadership pipeline. Where you have an X number of leaders that are brought into the pipeline per year. Raising up the leadership pipeline allows you to expand the ministry. Expanding the ministry allows you to reach many more people. It goes on like that. So here's the question: what's your wildly important goal? Over the next 12 months, what one thing, if you were to focus on it and it was to actually happen and occur, would raise the level of everything else in your evangelism, your discipleship, your worship service, everything else? What would be that one thing for you? At Converge, in our movement, we realize it's the raising up, recruiting of church planters, because church planters actually raise up new churches, and new churches raise up new disciples and new believers, and that's our thing. Our wildly important goal is church planters, raising up church planters. Second, you would define the lead and lag measures. A lag measure is a measure of something that's already happened that can no longer be influence. For example, in your church, it would be your attendance last weekend or your giving last weekend. That would be a lag measure. It may be the number of baptisms you had in the past. It may be the number of people in a small group. All those things are lag measures. A lead measure is different. A lead measure is something that affects the lag measure number, but it's influenceable. In other words, you can have a part in it. You can change it. I'll give you an example from the book. They had a shoe store where they had one person who was selling a whole lot more shoes than anybody else. And they found out the reason was the only difference between this person and everyone else was that when the people came into the store, this person would measure the size of the foot of every customer that came in. The result was he was selling 4 times as many shoes as anybody else simply from measuring the foot. So a lead measure in their store became how many feet did you measure people that came into the store. I have found, for example, in the church that when people invite people to church, they're more likely to come to church. I know that sounds very strange and odd, but when you actually invite people, people come to church. And so that would be a lead measure. How many people were invited over this next period of time? And you would actually influence that by asking people to invite and helping them learn how to invite. Lead measures and lag measures. Once you have that, you want to develop or design a scorecard. A scorecard is the list of lead and lag measures that you want to measure over time to see if there's a pattern between your success and these efforts. Hopefully you can find a distinct pattern of when you're doing lead measures, it results in higher lag numbers. And you just want to keep this scorecard so that everyone knows how to win the game. And then finally, you want to develop a cadence of accountability. A lot of times we set goals for the year and we don't talk about them for the rest of the year, or we only talk about them once every 6 months or so when there's a semi-annual review. But the fact is there's a cadence that we need to have in order to put these wildly important goals ahead of the whirlwind of ordinary daily business. We got to figure out how to keep these things in front of us. And so having a cadence where you know that once a week or once a quarter or once a month, whatever your cadence needs to be, that people are, and this is put front and center. This wildly important goal is put front and center of people saying, how are we doing? These lead and lag measures are being measured on a regular basis. And by doing these 4 things, you'll find yourself executing much, much better. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.